I'll call to order a special meeting of the Apache Junction City Council to order. Roll call.
Mayor Wilson,
Here?
Vice Mayor Schroeder,
Here.
Councilmember Cross,
Here.
Councilmember Heck,
Here.
Councilmember Johnson,
Here.
Councilmember Nesser,
Present.
Councilmember Soller.
Here.
You have a quorum, Your Honor.
Okay, it's a public hearing, so Matt?
And Mr. Mayor, members of the council, tonight is up for your consideration the adoption of the final budget for the city. You heard publicly the presentation on May 1st at your special meeting then. You also heard the presentation on May 15th where you adopted the tentative budget, and we, as required by law, posted it publicly for 2 weeks. And now that that is finished, it is time to consider the final budget adoption. No changes have taken place since your tentative budget adoption. And we can proceed as you wish. You can go straight into the public hearing and adoption, or we can answer questions or present anything you want.
Anything from the council?
Nope.
I see no no's. I mean, all no's, right? Excuse me. So this is a public hearing. Anyone like to speak on the Apache Junction's budget for next fiscal year? And I don't see anybody moving, so I'll close that. So can I get a motion?
Your Honor,
Yes.
I move that the resolution number 2311 let's try this again. I move that resolution number 23-11, a resolution of the mayor and the city council of the city of Apache Junction, Arizona, fully adopting estimates or of expenditures by the city of Apache Junction for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2023 and ending June 30th, 2024, declaring establishment of the budget for the city of Apache Junction for fiscal year 2023 through 2024, and declaring an emergency be approved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Roll call.
Vice Mayor Schroeder,
Yes.
Councilmember Nesser,
Yes.
Councilmember Heck,
Yes.
Councilmember Soller,
Yes.
Councilmember Johnson,
Yes.
Councilmember Cross,
Yes.
Mayor Wilson.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. Okay, so that's going to be it for a special meeting, so I will close the meeting. And now I will open the Apache Junction City work session. Call to order. Roll call.
Mayor Wilson,
I'm here.
Vice Mayor Schroeder,
Here.
Councilmember Cross,
Here.
Councilmember Heck,
Here.
Councilmember Johnson,
Here.
Councilmember Nesser,
Present.
Councilmember Soller.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. Okay, presentation and discussion on proposed resolution number 23-16, authorizing the city to enter into First Amendment to intergovernmental agreement with the American Charter Schools Foundation, DBA, Apache Trail High School, for grant-funded school resource officer.
Good evening, Mayor, and members of council. Tonight is just to review to get an SRO, school resource officer at Apache Trail. We currently have a school resource officer at the Apache Trail High School, which is a charter school, and we're looking to continue that relationship with Apache Trail and do that again for this next year. I believe it'll be for a multiple year contract with the Apache Trail High School, and that'll be on consent agenda tomorrow.
Any questions from the council on this? Seeing no,
Other than, well, maybe just say, I'm thrilled about having our SRO at Apache Trail, and I know we have several others, but I am a proponent of getting more of them if we can. I realize there's an expense involved, but I'm glad that we have this agreement here with Apache Trail.
Me too, thank you.
I concur.
okay. So it's on the consent agenda, so we don't have to
Correct.
do anything on that one now.
And just real quick, Your Honor, we're very pleased too that we have these relationships with the local schools and hope that we can continue to have more. And Chief, the relationship went great on this last time around, and
Correct.
look forward to that continuing.
Yeah, we've had a lot of success with our SROs, our school resource officers at Apache Junction Unified High School District or the school district, as well as the Apache Trail. It's something that we've prevented bad things from happening, and we've continued to build positive relationships.
Great. Okay, presentation, discussion of a 5-year master services and license agreement with Flock Group in the amount of $315,500 for community safety.
So last year, again, Mayor, members of council, thanks for this opportunity to present this. Last year, I came before you to talk about Flock cameras, which are license plate readers. And it's a tool we've been using that has been extremely successful. We currently have 15 cameras in the city. We hope to add 10 additional cameras around the city, which will give us pretty good coverage for most of the city, where if there's a stolen vehicle or any type of major investigation, that it will help us to locate, identify any suspects involved in criminal activity. This contract will lock us in for a 5-year agreement with Flock at the price that we're currently paying. Rates are going up, so we wanted to get this price locked in with the same price that we've been paying. We're currently going to be paying, we will be paying with these 25 cameras, which will be $62,500 per year, and a total of $315,000 for the next 5 years. And I'll answer any questions you may have.
Any questions over here?
Yep. Mr. Mayor. Chief, have the cameras functioned or performed and accomplished what you are wanting from these in terms of identifying stolen vehicles or persons of interest or something?
They have, and they've actually exceeded our expectations with what we believed we would get. You know, the last time we checked, we had dozens of recovered stolen vehicles with apprehensions. We've also used them in cases to locate missing individuals. One case in particular was a silver alert out of a West Valley agency, and then when that vehicle drove by one of these cameras, it immediately notifies our officers and gives them a heads up of the back part of the vehicle with the description, the color, a photo, and we were able to locate this elderly gentleman and get him back home safely. And that's one use that we had. We've had multiple where there were criminals that were terrorizing the neighborhoods, and we were able to identify just from a vehicle description on who these bad actors were and be able to identify the vehicle, locate them, and take them into custody. And on top of that, the stolen vehicles as well.
That's awesome. Yeah. So the price that you're quoting, the $315, that includes the extra new cameras.
It does.
Just $315,000 saving a person's life, because we know a lot of times our silver alerts end up in tragedy. I think that's worth it. So.
I agree. Thank you, sir.
Yes.
Your Honor, Chief, would you, because I know I'll hear from people, would you just give a little detail for the camera
You bet.
or the public, that these cameras are not taking pictures, they're not looking for red light runners, speeders, they're not taking pictures of the driver, et cetera, et cetera?
Yes. So I have a presentation I can pull up if you'd like to see it. You
It
pulling that up?
probably wouldn't hurt just for the general public, for their
I got my
knowledge.
glasses. Oh, there it is.
Now you just have to click the arrow through
Okay.
the slide.
So just a recap of what Flock safety is. These are license plate readers that this is exactly what it looks like here. It's a camera that's fed off solar power. It's attached to a light fixture or some type of fixture, and it works off a cellular signal. All of our police officers are city-issued cell phones, and the way it works is when a vehicle passes by, this is what you get. You get the license plate, you get the vehicle description, and you do not get any pictures of occupants. It is not a license plate reader, or sorry, it is a license plate reader. It is not a red camera or a red light runner. It's not a speed camera. There's no speed on that. We don't that's not the information we have. All of this information, it's purged every 30 days, and we are able to keep the data. If we have some type of crime that we need to hold the data, we'll do that. But for, like I said, since we've installed these things in September, we've been using it very often, and it's helped us significantly to solve crimes and to help save people and answer any questions. Let's see, this is currently where our cameras are located in the city. This is the 15 cameras we currently have, and where we want to put the next additional 10 are, it's a little bit harder, but it's spread more throughout the center of the city. All of our cameras currently are only at the entrance, and once they come into the city, we don't know where they're at. So we're hoping that with these 10 additional cameras, we'll have more coverage throughout the city. And if you come into Apache Junction, we are going to find you and you're committing a crime. These are the other cities throughout the valley that are currently used throughout different areas. We have access to their data. They have access to ours if we need to, for any type of investigation. These are the hit categories that we look for. If there's any type of, the biggest thing I would say is anything that's entered into the National Crime Database, NCIC, that will pop up and show that this vehicle is wanted, or it's a missing person, or it's somebody that's involved in some type of criminal activity, whether it's here, another city in Arizona, or even across the country. And like I said, we've had several successes as well. This is, again, what it looks like. No identifying features of the drivers or occupants.
And this only looks for vehicles that are in the NCIC, correct?
Correct, yes.
So some police department had to have put that into the system.
Absolutely,
For it
yes.
to even notify you of that license plate.
Correct, that's accurate.
Mayor?
Yes.
As a recipient of the flock, where I work, it does tremendous amount of work for the police department. We're solving a lot of crimes, we're finding a lot of missing children, missing adults. It is a great system, I'm 100% behind this. The next step, though, real-time crime center. That is a game changer. And I know that you're looking at it and talking to the Mesa chief, because Mesa has one that we could probably get into if we supply the personnel. But that is a real game changer too, because that follows any cameras, just like our incident over here at the Royal Palms. If they had had cameras up over there, the police department could have went in and probably found who those people were a lot faster, because you can go in and look at things at any camera in the city and on the highways. So that would be something I'd recommend that you really take a hard look into, is expanding into a real-time crime center. But this flock is a game changer for you out here.
Thank you, I agree.
Your Honor.
Yes.
Chief, this $300,000, does that include all the fees?
It does.
It does?
Yes.
So, and this is a contract, because it says here that they reserve the right to change the fees during the course of the year up to 120 calendar days. I need to ask you, we've had this already going for, what, 2 years now, or a year?
Not even a year. It'll
Not
be
even a
here in
year?
September.
Has the fees changed in
They
that
have
year at
not.
all? Have not?
No, in the previous agency that I worked at, that agency's been using the flock cameras for at least 3-4 years, and again, they haven't changed.
Okay.
But I do have a representative of flock here,
You want to ask them?
if you would like to ask him. Okay.
No.
Yep. Any other questions? No. Okay, will this be on our consent agenda, or we'll be voting on this
When
separate?
are we looking at?
I believe it's the following council.
Oh, so it won't until
Actually,
July.
It is tomorrow, too. I apologize. It is tomorrow night. Correct, it is tomorrow night.
Okay. And if I remember right, it's a separate issue, it's not a consent agenda, right?
No, I believe
Let me check.
It's under new business, Your Honor,
no new business.
as a separate business, a
Yep,
separate item,
separate,
yeah.
okay. All right. Okay, presentation, discussion on the city efforts to address park usage, community concerns relating to Flatiron Park. Representatives from mental health, industry, and Apache Junction may speak.
You can have a little break. Not long.
Give Chief a break. Short one.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. Liz Langenbach, Parks and Recreation Director. Tonight, I am tag teaming with the Police Department as well as Horizon Health to kind of share a little bit about a growing issue that we have, as well as other members of our teams to kind of be here to answer some questions. Tonight we were requested to bring the topic of homelessness in our parks to a City Council work session and share with you tonight primarily what we're currently doing right now to address some of the problems that we're seeing and some of the increase in issues that we're having there. We have a lot of information tonight, so trying to pare it all down into one presentation night was a little tough, so we know we'll get a bunch of questions and some other things that might result in what are some other future things that we can be doing. So we're taking note on all of that. All of the details that we talk about tonight, it might be something that we're bringing back at a later date to talk about future solutions and to drill down into some of the things that we've been researching and looking into. So first of all, I think why this is has come to the council forefront is because we've seen an increase in complaints, whether it's individuals telling a council member or a department, as well as comments on social media about the increase of homeless in Flatiron in particular, but in parks and things like that in general. In addition, we'll be sharing tonight that we have had an increase of calls for service and complaints in general that are received through the police department system that the chief will go over here shortly. Many of these concerns are really about an increase in the presence of homelessness at our park. We are also seeing some unwanted behaviors that we don't want to be seeing there. So like I said, tonight I'm just going to share currently what we're doing. We are all going to be sharing currently what we're doing and then open it up to questions and some other things to address what maybe some of your concerns and your thoughts are. Nationally, there's an increase in homelessness. So chronic homelessness is up. You can kind of look through the stats here on this sheet that the chief had pulled together for us. Unsheltered homelessness is up 3.4% since 2020. And in general, I think we're all aware that homelessness is a very complex issue. It's not something that is just a police department problem. It's not just a Parks and Recreation problem. It's not just a problem for the individuals who are experiencing it, because it's obviously, for some of them, it has some serious challenges for. It is not just a problem for our nonprofits and our faith community, for our other individual users of our parks and our community spaces. It's something for all of us, and it has definitely been a very challenging issue. We try very hard to balance compassion with enforcement. And so while individuals might not see us doing exactly what individuals would like us to do, it's because we're trying to strike a very delicate balance between that. Balancing the needs of individuals, particularly in this homeless population, with the needs of everybody else who uses our parks and our community spaces. The other item that kind of is covered in what makes this so complex is that homelessness itself and being homeless is not a criminal. You're going to hear this over and over, and you're going to hear a lot of the things that I share today, from some of our other presenters. But being homeless is not a crime, and we really work hard not to criminalize that. But unfortunately, some of the behaviors that we're having and some of the perceptions around some of the individuals in our facilities can cause issues. And the behaviors that are criminal, or the behaviors that are unwanted or against our park and other open space rules, are the things that we are trying hard to address. Some of those include leaving garbage, spreading out belongings so that way other individuals cannot enjoy some of the shareable spaces, vandalizing amenities that they might need, but that cause us a major problem with maintenance. So electrical outlets, tapping into water sources that are not for the general public, vandalizing outlets at all of our trees, vandalism in our restrooms, which causes us a lot of major issues. So some of those are things that we are addressing on a regular, everyday basis that are the actions of a handful of some of the individuals in this population. So here's what our Parks and Rec Department in particular is doing. I'm going to share a little bit about what our Park Ranger program does and some of the things that we have implemented over the last couple of years. And then I'll be turning it over to Chief Pooley to share a little bit more about what the police department has been doing as well. So just to give you a little bit of background on our Park Ranger program, we have 5 full-time park rangers and 3 part-time park rangers, plus a park ranger supervisor. We have 2 shifts during the day that cover our park hours as well as time before and after parks are open. Typically, and it's 7 days a week, we typically have at least 1 to 2 park rangers on duty most days, unless somebody's out sick and there's a vacation. But with those amount of people, we don't have a lot of people to have a whole lot of overlap. We do have 1 day of the week where we have 3 people on because it's an overlap shift, and we're able to do a little bit more patrol and a little bit more outreach items on those days. Our park rangers patrol 9 park systems, 2 recreational facilities, the multi-gen center and the aquatic facility, plus the downtown city maintained property, so things like the Focal Point, Phelps Drive, other areas that Parks and Recreation maintains, the landscape and the amenities. Those are areas that our park rangers do patrol. And then our multi-use trail system and open space. I will tell you that is a very vast area, so there's limited time that we can actually have our park rangers go out and proactively be patrolling that area. So we try to address that on a semi-routine basis and then on an as-needed as complaints arrive. We do have a park ranger hotline. It goes directly to our park ranger cell phone. So this is a number that is shared on site on all of our rules signage, and sometimes it's in multiple places at the parks. It's on our website when you read about our parks and our facilities. We do share this often in various of our campaigns of see something, say something. So on social media, you'll see it occasionally. It is also listed on any of the other literature that we share. So phone cards that have all of our contact information, all of those. So if somebody sees something, really the biggest line of defense for us is for them to call. And so that way somebody can get to the location that there's something going on immediately. Our park rangers make contact with park patrons, which includes, and it's all of our park patrons. So they're there, their goal is to try to make contact with at least half of the people that are in the facility, no matter what they're there for. So this does include addressing various issues, but it can be just talking with folks for seeing how they're doing. It might be a verbal warning that is documented and that's put into our system. It could also be citing those folks that are not following park and city codes. And so those are all of the types of interactions that our park rangers are handling at the park itself. So with our individuals who are homeless and our homeless population that's there, we know many of the individuals. They are folks that our guys are checking on, making sure that they're okay, but also if they're not doing things they shouldn't be doing, if they are doing things they should not be doing, then we are either giving a warning or doing some type of a trespass or a citation, especially if it's multiple offenses. The other things that we have increased over the last year are present at the Multi-Gen Center and City Hall campus, addressing more daily issues. So we're there, is more of a presence. I wouldn't say that there's some major problems happening, but having a park ranger presence and when we do have issues or concerns, they are there to address anything that is against our rules. Increased daily checks in the downtown maintained areas. So we have a park rangers that are going every single morning because every single morning individuals will have either brought all of their belongings to benches, maybe overnight while there's not as much of a presence. They're spreading out all of their belongings along Phelps, for example. So the first thing in the morning, we're going through, cleaning up, addressing any issues with individuals that are still there, and enlisting their help in getting cleanup. But our park rangers are doing a vast majority of cleanup every single morning along some of these areas. We have worked with IT and the police department to improve and update our security cameras, particularly at Flatiron Park. So at this park itself, we had cameras that were not functioning properly. And so working closely with Doug in IT to get the existing cameras functioning, and part of the police department and the city's overall security system was really critical. We were able to accomplish that, along with, it required some Wi-Fi and some other connectivity, but that was accomplished this year, and that has definitely added a lot. So when rangers or police department can't be on site, they can look up on their phone or their tablet. If somebody calls with an issue that's happening at the park, they are able to pull that up, look and see if they can see it immediately happening. In addition, it helps us to be able to investigate vandalism and other things that we have come across the next morning. We have added signage to areas that are designed for children to discourage use by others. We are looking at what we can and can't do. So most of our signage is on our playgrounds, in our different areas. We can tell people what it's designed for. We work closely with the city attorney and others to talk about how enforceable are things like that, and what are we allowed to do and not allowed to do. Lastly, we have had an ongoing campaign, See Something, Say Something, off and on over the last several years. I think we could probably do a better job of this, and I think that's one of the things that, as we've collaborated, sharing with the public, and that'll be one of the things we'll talk about when we wrap up, but sharing with the public, how can our park users help us to see things that we can't? We currently don't have enough park rangers to have somebody staying 24/7 at Flatiron Park. We don't have the amount of police officers on that could be patrolling every single area that we have homeless issues in constantly, to make sure that basically once somebody leaves, then that's whenever people know when our park rangers have come through. They know once they've left that they might not see somebody right away. We try to rearrange our patrols and when we're going to be visiting a site, but truly the park users themselves, if they were able to really look at those numbers that we have listed, and again, having a campaign where we could share with folks, immediately when you see something, don't just tell your neighbor about it, don't complain about it to somebody, maybe, posting it on social media doesn't help. Calling our number, calling one of the hotlines that we're going to be sharing with you guys again here is really the way that we can enlist their help tremendously and see what we can handle firsthand. That's some of the things that park rangers are doing. I'm going to turn it over to Chief Pooley, and he's going to share a little bit about what the police department is doing, and then we'll kind of go through a couple of other things, and then wrapping up at the end with some questions.
Mayor, members of council, good to see you again. Just to look at some of the things that we've seen here. When we pull our data, I love data. I love looking at it, and paints a picture of what we're seeing. So when we look at specifically Flatiron Park, and we take the past 3 consecutive calendar years from the beginning of June, so June 1st, all the way to May 31st of the following year. So we did that for the past 3 years. So that's the data you're looking at. What we saw is a 134% increase of activity at Flatiron Park in 3 years. So let me explain that. In June of 2020 to May 31st of 2021, we had a total of 84 calls for service. 59 were self-initiated, meaning our officers or park rangers went to the park, checked off there to do their own patrols. If you fast forward, our total calls went from 84 to 197. Now that 197, 64% of those are officer initiated, whether it was a park ranger or whether it was a police officer. So that shows me that a couple things, that we're in the parks a lot. We're at Flatiron Park a lot more, almost double the amount of time over the past, well, more than double the amount of time over the past 3 years. So that's officers that are taking their free time, going out there and proactively doing whatever, making contacts, talking to people, and just seeing what we can do. And we'll talk about some of those contacts. Now, the public initiated, we had 71 calls for service just this last year, from June 1st of last year, 2022, to May 31st of 23. We had 71 calls for service, which that's more than triple the amount of calls that have come in over the last year. So have we seen an increase of calls for service? The answer is yes. So again, I'll tell you, for me, I understand that homelessness is a huge issue across the country. One of the things that we tell our officers and that we do training and everything that we say is that being homeless is not a crime. Our goal is to try to get every person that's suffering from homeless, to get them help, get them assistance, and get them back on their feet and do whatever we can. And we'll talk a little bit about some of the partners that we've done for that. It's not a police department issue alone. And I know oftentimes people will say, well, why don't the police, we get calls where they'll say, you know, there's somebody at the park and they look homeless. Okay, there's nothing, what does a homeless person look like? Everybody in here is gonna have a different answer. You know, some base it on whatever they're wearing, some base it on other things. We go and we only target criminal behavior. So one of the things that we have is we created about a year ago the homeless hotline. This is not monitored 24/7, and I encourage anybody that's watching or gets this presentation to get this number. It's basically a resource that somebody can call. It's not monitored 24/7, but we usually get back to you within 24 hours. We're able to try to get the right resources, and oftentimes the police department's not the right person to go deal with some of the issues we're dealing with. And sometimes it is. So with this number, you can leave a message and we will get back to you within 24 hours to address anything that may need to be addressed. Businesses, residents, visitors can use this number, and it's to bring resources to those that are suffering homelessness. We have what's called our homeless outreach team, our HOT team. This is not a full-time position. We have 1 sergeant and 3 officers that are currently doing this assignment. It's an ancillary duty. So on top of answering calls for service, we are, in their free time, these 4 officers are dedicated to go out and address any issues that may come up due to those that are suffering homelessness. Now, the reason we have these 4 officers, they are all what we call CIT trained or crisis intervention trained. They have different training to deal with it. They understand the resources. They understand the laws that we can and cannot enforce. They understand the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals and how that plays into homelessness and the things they can and can't do. Most of our officers have a pretty good understanding, but our HOT team, we want them to be our specialists that know how to deal with this. They go out. We also have been sending them out during off-duty hours, so on the additional time, they'll come in on their days off or before shift, and they'll go out and address issues. We've partnered with Horizon Health and Wellness, which you'll hear from Maria Johnson here shortly, about some of the amazing resources and the great team effort that we're doing to address this. And I'll tell you, there's a lot of success stories. And again, it shows to me that the police department is not the issue, is not the key to this. It's everyone in this room. I looked in here and I saw everybody here, and everyone has the same goal that we have. We are also part of the Homeless Coalition, and some of the other things that our HOT team does is they've organized 2 major cleanups that took intense amount of hours as well as staffing to come out, and people from all over the community, and we're talking, it takes a lot of resources to do these major cleanups. So I'm gonna let this play for a second, but basically this is just what our HOT team went out, and so when we hear that people are making complaints, I would complain too. When I see this out in the desert, just in the downtown area, just outside the downtown area, everyone in this room should be furious. Anybody watching should be furious, because it's a biohazard. It does not look good. And at the same time, there's people that are suffering and that are out there needing assistance. So when we have these cleanups, and again, these pictures are recent, within the last month and a half, that our HOT team's gone out there. And I'll show you a map of kind of the areas that we've taken these pictures. But what they do is, this one didn't play. But What they do is they go out there, they talk to the people that are staying, like in this tent. They'll offer them resources. They will go out oftentimes with our team from Horizon Health and Wellness to see if there's anything we can do to get them assistance, getting them housing, getting them back on their feet, getting them any type of resources. They are also asked if they can pack their stuff up, clean their stuff up if it's in certain areas. And oftentimes this is what we find, and there's nobody there as well. So when we look at this map, this is those pictures are all from areas in where these hot spots are. As you can see, right in here is Flatiron Park. This is the downtown area. CVS, Discount Tire. So along these areas where it's red, those are where our hot team has been, our homeless outreach team has been, to address some of these issues. And some of those pictures that you saw were from these areas as well. So what are we doing? You know, a big part of it is collaboration, coordination. The police department, we're a small cog in the wheel. We're the most visible because we're in uniform. We drive marked cars. People think we're the answer. And we're more than willing to do whatever we can to help with this. But I'll tell you, some of the things that we've had to do and deal with is really sad stories. A lot of stories where people need help. Bottom line, they come from not much and they lose it, and we are stuck having to try to help them. We don't have the resources to do everything, so we have to rely on our community partners. The Homeless Coalition is part of that. Those partners, we have the Red Cross, we have Genesis, we have the Food Bank, we have different churches and organizations that are out there that want to help. And this is kind of some of the things that we're doing. When we look at what's going on, there's currently 2 drives going on, the Sock It to Poverty Summer Sock Drive, as well as the AJ Homeless Coalition Hydration Heat Relief, which is trying to provide water and a cool place for homeless to go.
Chief?
Yes, sir.
Could you back up 2 frames? Thank you. Let me get a shot of that. Seems like they're all kind of hanging out in one specific area there.
And as you know, we don't patrol the state land really. BLM, that's not our jurisdiction, which when we do go out there on occasion, we do find camps out there as well. So education and awareness. We work and we use our community partners to help get the education out. Anytime we go to community meetings, we have to address and we have to educate the public that it's not a police department issue alone. We're there for a reason. We're there to target bad behavior, criminal behavior, but we have a lot of resources that we're trying to bring forward and help educate the public as well. Our outreach and engagement is through our homeless, our hot team. I just forgot what they stand for. I'm sorry.
Homeless outreach?
Homeless outreach. Yeah, our homeless outreach team is part of our big outreach and engagement. They also engage quite a bit with some of our partners as well. One of our biggest partners, I would say, that we've seen a lot of success is with our mental health partners, which is Horizon Health and Wellness. We go out with them. We've been having this relationship probably since the beginning of the year, where we started going out in pairs with crisis workers that are offering resources. And I'll tell you a few reasons why that's successful. And Marie, I don't want to steal her thunder, but people, when the homeless see us in uniform, there's automatically a feeling possibly where we're going to try to target them or we're going to try to arrest them or something. When they're not in uniform and they're not police officers, it's a different reaction. You get a reaction where they're calmer, they want to listen, and we get a lot more success that way. So I'm going to ask Maria to come up and turn it over to her to tell her more about how their crisis team works.
Hello, I am Maria Johnson. I'm the Chief Crisis Officer with Horizon Health and Wellness. I oversee mobile teams in Pinal County as well as outreach services. And I want to review quickly here really what the responsibilities are as well as what our efforts have been and barriers to these efforts. So part of this team's focus is locating, engaging, and connecting individuals to behavioral health services to increase recovery, screening and assistance, and applying for mainstream benefits such as Medicaid access, VA benefits, SMI, which is severely mentally ill benefits, which help cover costs such as therapy, medications, Social Security benefits, SNAP, which is food stamps, and SOAR applications, which is housing affordability applications, referrals and transition housing, and referrals to other healthcare and community-based services. Keys to this approach is to help provide the continuity of care to work across systems that aid these individuals in successfully navigating the needed services and resources to access services, treatment, and pathways to gain sustainable housing. So currently in Pinal County, I have 3 outreach staff dedicated to the county, and part of their responsibilities is outreach. It's not a funded position, it's actually falling under mobile team crisis. And so their undivided attention is not dedicated to this issue, although we are looking at increased funding for Mercy Care to hire another position. That way we can have more undivided focus on this issue and concern. And so part of their responsibilities are to go out and engage and connect and get them enrolled in services, do behavioral health screenings to determine further needs. We've been very successful in helping them apply for access, food stamps, getting IDs, getting services, getting connected to services to help with stabilization. But it isn't, again, behavioral health alone that could manage this issue. Referral sources have been from law enforcement when we've partnered with them, as well as referrals from other law enforcement agencies, from fire, from community agencies, Genesis, the food bank, local businesses. They've referred over in the event that they identify a person who could benefit from further screening and evaluation. And so the outreach engagement, going out, offering services, and they have to be voluntary, okay? The person has to be receptive to treatment, willing to engage, willing to follow through. Outpatient services that we help connect them to, and it is not limited to just Horizon. That consists of family medicine, primary care services, children groups, outpatient behavioral health services, psychiatric services, lab services, pharmacy, crisis services, domestic violence, offender treatment, MAT treatment, which is for opioid dependency, intensive outpatient substance abuse programs, DUI treatment, habilitation services, parenting classes, supported employment, computer classes, trauma counseling, grief groups, group fitness, volunteer group, supportive housing. There is a number of services that behavioral health has to offer. Efforts made, we've had, with referrals, there's probably about 20% success rate. And by success, it doesn't mean they've ultimately achieved housing. It's been that we've helped them qualify for benefits. And benefits are really important because those can be the initial barrier to accessing care. And so assisting them in qualifying for benefits, getting their identification, which can be a barrier to obtaining employment, qualified for access, qualified for food stamps. So those have been measures and successes that we've had in assisting this population.
I got a real quick question on, do you work with the VA office for the veterans?
We refer to the VA office.
Okay, just wanted to make sure. Thank you.
So barriers to stabilization. According to Maslow's hierarchy of need, we need to be sure that those basic needs are met before we can really be receptive to other efforts. So that's clothing, food, shelter, water, safety, and that has been a significant challenge for us. Really, these individuals are surviving. And so it is difficult for them to focus efforts on their mental health and stability when they're trying to figure out where they're going to stay, be kept safe, how to, protect their belongings, which can be stolen, and their identification. A lack of shelter, public transportation has been a challenge. Public transportation getting to a job or employment, lack of shelter, safety from the elements, lack of affordable housing. A number of the individuals that we've encountered have recently become homeless because of fixed incomes, because of disability. That has been a major barrier and challenge for this population. Access to qualify as an individual, a lone adult, you have to make less than $1,500. So $1,500 is rent now. Nowadays, $1,500 is rent. And so for a person not qualifying for access, that means they have to pay for their own insurance, co-pays, appointments, housing assistance, vehicle, gas, a number of those things, groceries. And so it's any wonder that a number of them are struggling to maintain housing. A number of them have lost insurance or aren't aware when to reapply. They don't get their mail. They're out in the community. They have their identification stolen from them. They're living out of their backpacks. All their belongings are in that backpack. So in the event a person's identification is stolen, or their social security, or their birth certificate, where do you begin, right? Transportation they don't have, scheduling those appointments, following up to verify your identity to obtain these things are a challenge. They're also victims of violence and theft. So they're experiencing trauma. Substance use, because mental health, to manage mental health symptoms. When we have tried to engage individuals, there have been some really minor challenges that would seem minor to us, I should say. That's having their phone charged so that they know, so we can reach them, remind them of appointments, pick them up, locate them if they are transient throughout the city. So having their vehicle or their phone charged, again, having their identification has been a challenge. So a number of these have been barriers to help support them and keep them stable because those basic needs aren't met. In housing, Horizon does offer housing options throughout Pinal County. We currently house 60 individuals. So we're part of this effort. There are 60 individuals not currently on the street that are in our housing. It's just a general lack of housing, and that's really one of the primary issues that we've identified, in addition to the other challenges with mental health stability. And so with that said, we are looking at additional funding for a position that will be able to provide their undivided attention to this effort to help support them and engage them. We did also apply for a grant for transition housing, which helps to support them and aid in their recovery. It's brief, but helps to assist them to connect to long-term solutions and sustainable housing. We're hoping to hear back about that in August if we were awarded that, and that would be based in Apache Junction. So we're hoping to be awarded that and aid in these efforts. So we're going to continue our efforts. These are challenges that we have experienced, but there have been some successes. We had a couple of individuals who actually, after enrolling and becoming more stable, we were able to get in touch with their family and have them return home out of state. So there have been some success stories. It's just few and far between without those basic needs met. Thank you.
I have a question for you.
Yes.
So you say you have 60 individuals in housing right now?
Yes.
Now, is this
Countywide.
Is this transitional? Are these people getting assistance? They're getting back on their feet, they're leaving, this is revolving door thing, so it's just, your capacity is 60, correct? Is that what it is? And then, but you see new faces all the time? Have success stories through this?
Yes, we've had success stories, and some of this is transitional housing, some of this is residential treatment, others is more permanent housing, where we've purchased properties and they are paying rent, low-income rent. So it's a combination of those.
Through their jobs, I'm assuming?
Yes. Okay. And they receive support from Horizon in order to maintain stability, attending appointments, assisting them with counseling services, et cetera. And again, it isn't limited to behavioral health services that we offer this support. It's to connect them to all community resources, you know, clothing, food, and all the other essentials.
So these individuals that, I guess you have a standard, right? I mean, it's like, okay, once you reach this point, you're on your own. Go back to the real world kind of thing and get yourself placed. Have there already been any return?
We don't typically do that. They're on waiting lists. So we don't kick anyone out to the street after they've achieved stability. They wait for housing to become available. The only time that occurs is in the event that there's a safety issue or concern with an individual in our housing. But otherwise, they are on a waiting list waiting for long-term sustainable housing.
So what do you consider stability then?
What do I consider?
So you're saying that, well, you know, these people, let's just say they were, you know, fell on hard times, got addicted, you know, lost their jobs, the list goes on and on. They come stay with you, they get off the drugs, they've found a job, they're starting to, you know, they're getting up in the morning, they're going to their job. And at what point, so you say, well, we never kick them out, but then the word kicking out sounds a little callous, but I mean, that's basically what it boils down to is that at what point, I mean, so there's never a point where you say, okay, you've done it, congratulations, you sought the help, we helped you, you're good, it's nice knowing you. That's never a thing.
No, we really work diligently during that period of stability, which is taking medications, maintaining a job, to help them access housing. And it may not be that they remain in Pinal County. It isn't limited to Pinal County. We're looking at housing throughout the state to help assist them with getting connected to that.
But how do these people become self-sustainable if you don't give them the opportunity after they've reached a point where you feel that they can do this?
Okay. So they've achieved stability and we're helping to connect them to long-term housing. They're compliant with medications. They are maintaining employment. That is how they achieve stability and.
But yet they just stay, but yet they stay with you during this until they get housing that is provided by you?
No, not necessarily by us.
By
It's-
the government?
Yes.
So these people.
application.
So this is a,
Yeah. Yeah, we're helping them to achieve stability for them to become independent. It isn't that they're remaining in our housing forever, but no, we don't return them to the street. We're really setting them up to fail in that event. But it is looking at all housing options, applications, affordable housing, putting them on the wait list for them to get connected to that.
okay. I guess it's not that I don't understand what you're saying to me. I feel like, you know, you have an individual in you know, in your housing, they've gone through the steps, let's just call them, and they're like, hey, you know, thanks, I'm good. But then you just hang on to them, right? Because until when?
So we can get them connected to housing, long-term options.
Well, that's
Why
what
go
that's
on
what
their
I'm.
own?
Well, that's what I'm
They got
saying.
it good.
But there comes a point when you're staying somewhere that you can be on your own, and that's what I'm trying to narrow it down. At what point do you feel that these people could be on their own?
I'm sorry.
'Cause, well, I feel like there's a lot of organizations out there that prey on the homeless and the drug addicted because they get paid by the state and the feds to take care of these people, and they hang on to these people just to get their check coming in from the feds all the time. And I want to know if these programs are actually working. And in order for them to be working is if these people are now living in their own apartment and driving their own car. And I'm just curious if you have stories of this actually coming about.
Well, I don't oversee our housing. I am happy to go get data and outcomes and measures to provide to the council so that you can see that our efforts are successful. So I'm happy to do that.
No, I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to attack you or anything, and I don't need to see data or anything, but, I mean, you do something for so long, I mean, just like anybody's in their industry, like what I do for a living, I've done something for so long, I start to know when things start to evolve, and I start to know when things are, okay, this is good. But from what I'm hearing and understanding is that you guys are never really seeing this?
You've had a lot of success, though.
we've had success stories, and again, some of our housing is long-term. It is where they're independent, they're paying rent, okay? So it's a combination of transition and independent living. And those that are in transition, we are assisting them to apply and qualify for affordable housing. And so that could take some time. I know that there have been some recent scares with access and group homes and et cetera. And it really is, I mean, the alternative, I'm not sure that there is a lot of alternatives, you know. We're trying to help support them and set them up for success, and it may be the delay because of housing that's not really available and the lack of affordable housing, but they remain so they can continue to be stable until we can find affordable housing for them.
So this transition home that you're hoping to get here in Apache Junction, this will be a home where it's like, okay,
They're living there.
but is it, okay, it's time for you to get out on your own now? Is that,
Yes.
this is the home that you're referring to out here in Apache Junction? But not necessarily the homes we're talking about here in countywide, because they're not all transition homes. They're just kind of like assisted homes.
Yes.
Okay.
Your Honor, question. Can you give us any idea of approximately how many people are homeless in Apache Junction?
I don't have that data.
I mean, is it 2 or 22 or 222? I mean, do we have any kind of idea? Does anybody know?
I don't even think we have that. You know, every year there's what's called the point-in-time count. I don't know what the last numbers were, but that's something we can get as well.
Okay.
So,
Chief, let's finish the presentation.
yeah. So just in closing here, we've gone over a lot, but I think the biggest thing is that this is not going to be solved overnight. This is something that communities across the country are trying to figure out. And is there an answer? One answer? No, there's not. You know, it's when you're dealing with people and behavior and all different types of outcomes, you know, it's something that we as a city just have to know it's not going to be an overnight solution. So some of the things when we conclude here that we just in closing is we want people to know the rules of what's acceptable behavior at the parks. There's code of conduct, there's rules that, or acceptable behavior that we want people to be aware of. If there's something that we believe or you believe is out of control or behavior is criminal, by all means, call us. If it's an emergency situation, call 911. Our officers are going to arrive. We're going to do everything we can to solve the issue. If it's something that you want us to look into, but it's not a major emergency right now, we have the homeless hotline. We, like I said, we'll get back to you within 24 hours. And if you're at the parks, the park rangers have a duty line that somebody will answer, and they'll be able to address any issues at the park as well. And I believe that's all we have for our presentation tonight.
Yes. Chief, yeah, I think you can answer these questions. I've had a number of interactions with folks, and there's always that issue or question about what can law enforcement do in certain, or the park rangers do. For example, at Flatiron Park, if during regular hours when the park's open, if you have someone sitting in the ramada there that you think looks like they're homeless, they might have some belongings there, but they don't have it, broken out and strewn and like they're sleeping there. Can law enforcement or the park rangers go in and ask them to leave?
We cannot.
You cannot, okay?
Correct.
If a person who, again, appears homeless, and if they're using the splash pad and they're clothed, they've not disrobed, they're clothed, and they're using that to presumably wash off or whatever, can the park police or park rangers remove them?
No.
No. Okay. Folks living in their vehicles, if they're, I believe after hours, again at Flatiron Park, the the parking area that's on the west side through the gates after hours, they can't stay in that section,
Correct.
correct? But if their folks are living in their vehicles on North Apache Trail in those parking spaces, they're not spread out, they're not, you know, they don't have their belongings spread out beside them. Can you remove them?
No.
That, I think, to me, that's part of the challenge, is I
It
think
is.
we see folks and we say, why aren't we getting rid of them? And
Yeah.
it's not, so. if you could maybe
And I'll
just
tell you,
comment
it's
on
not an Apache Junction Police Department policy that we don't do that. It is Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals that has said these mandates. And and I know there's people upset about it. I totally understand. But at the same time, if we try to enforce that, we open ourselves up to liability and to be sued. Has it happened? Absolutely. It's happened across the country where police departments try to do to appease the citizens that want that. And it puts us in a very difficult situation. I want to have a park where I can take my kids, feel safe, and whatever that means. To me, it may mean something different than my neighbor. But I get it. We hear the complaints, and I think it's important people understand it's not a policy that applies to just Apache Junction Police Department. Every law enforcement agency in Arizona is dealing with the exact same thing, and across the country.
Yes.
From what I've read, City AJ code, camping is not allowed within the city in any public area, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, hang on.
Okay? I think I know where you're going.
I know that it's not illegal to sleep, but it does say that it's illegal to pitch a tent or any kind of a structure in a public place. If that was enforced, would we have all these shanty towns and all this trash strewn across our desert in the back alleyways and everywhere else? Does Ninth Circuit Court say we cannot enforce camping? Or does it say we can't enforce, bothering a homeless person?
I'm going to look over to Joel, our esteemed city attorney, to give a better explanation.
I knew you'd do that, Chief. I just knew it, and that's fine. It's a very complicated area of law. I could go on for 3 hours if you'd like, but I'm not going to.
Sure, no, let's do it.
Oh, you want me to? Okay, well, back in 1974, no, I don't want to do that. However, to answer your question, council member, Martin versus Boise, 2018. That was a Ninth Circuit case. So Ninth Circuit covers Arizona, California, Alaska, and some other states, but also Washington and also Idaho. This was Boise. Boise had shelters. Not the city-sponsored ones, but they had ones that churches had. There were 3 churches that provided shelters. The bottom line on that was, and people were camping out in parks, in public, and basically people got arrested, and so there was a lawsuit. ACLU was involved. So basically that said, if there's shelters available in the city, and the police department would have to check with those 3 churches whenever they were going to decide to cite someone. If the shelters were available, they could not cite anybody. And they would be asked, okay, do you want to go to the shelter? And so if they had the ability to go to the shelter, they could not be cited. That's the Boise case. Well, along came Johnson versus Grants Pass, 2022. That kind of modified the Boise case. That case talked about specifically parks, whether someone could sleep in their car in a park. They talked about homelessness also. So it took a different curve. They talked about being involuntarily homeless. And you read the decision 10 times, you say, what does that mean? Well, it means that you have no ability to get a shelter. You don't have the ability to do it. That case did talk about parks specifically. So to answer your question, I'm sorry it took about 5 minutes to get there, but to answer your question on camping, there is a camping code It's under 10-5-7. And basically, there's definitions of what camping is. But basically, if you take a tent and you put it out and there's a sleeping bag, that's camping. Can you do that in the city? Based on these two cases, yes, you can do that. You can do that in a park. You can do that. However, they limit it under this Johnson case. You could have one sleeping bag and you could sleep during the day on a sleeping bag in a park. Once the park closes, this gentleman will close the gate, or if there's no gate, he says, okay, this is our park area, this is closed. And now they're still there. They can be told, okay, you need to leave. Now, our city does not have shelters. The city does not provide shelters. Some cities do. Some cities actually buy hotel rooms or vouchers. I think New York City was putting people up at the Waldorf Astoria, 5-star hotel.
Yeah. Yep.
Different political environment, of course. LA did it also. You've heard about the Phoenix, the zone. Well, that's been going on a while. So what happened was, and I forget the exact boundaries in downtown Phoenix, but there was I think a mile square, I forget the exact streets, but they were taking people to the zone because people were complaining in other areas saying, hey, get this person off my yard, the Palm area. And so the cops would show up, they would take them to the zone, which was south of the 10 in the baseline area also. And so that's been going on. You've probably heard about the lawsuit. And finally, and people had enough. People that were living there, people that had houses there, businesses, they sued, and they did something called an injunctive relief. They're trying to force the city of Phoenix to enforce their own nuisance codes, their own camping codes, their own disorderly conduct. And the court said, you know what, enough is enough. Phoenix, you got to disassemble the zone. And they were given a deadline. I don't know if it got extended, but basically that's how that was going. And camping was going on there all the time. With camping came a lot of other problems. So what can we do? Well, there's always the mental health part of it, because I don't know what the percentage is of people who are homeless have mental health issues. I don't know what that is. We have a very good structure that the chief and Maria have set up to try to address the mental health part of it. In the past, we've had people who have had those mental issues and they just don't want help. And so I won't go into all the legalities. There's something called a Title 36 petition, where if you think the person's going to hurt themselves or hurt somebody else, you can have them evaluated. And that we have done that with certain people. Let's go back to the park. Someone's parking on that front road, north of Apache Trail. And yeah, to the general public, hey, they're camping. You know, they shouldn't be doing that. It doesn't look good, or whatever the complaint is. So what is an officer going to do? I'll let the chief tell me, do it in 30 seconds. What's an officer going to do when you get a complaint saying, hey, that truck, I don't want that truck there, so I want you to handle it? What are you going to do, chief?
Thanks, Joel.
Well, you only got a minute, though, because I got more to say.
I bet you do. Basically what they're going to do is they're going to get out there and they're going to determine there's really no crime that's being committed. You know, we could run the license plate, see if there's any type of wanted person, warrants, if the vehicle's been involved in anything, but basically there's not a lot. If they're blocking the sidewalk, yeah, then we can do that. If they're parked in a handicap spot, yeah, we can do something about that. Again, our job is criminal behavior, and it really ties our hands with some of the things we can and can't do.
Chief, do you have an ordinance that says they can only park there for 72 hours?
We do not.
Well, actually, we do have, I don't want you being mad at me tomorrow, okay?
No.
There is a code that says 48 hours.
48.
And if you're there more than 48 hours, then at one point it's considered abandoned. However,
Is that 48 hours on any city street?
yes.
Okay.
However, how do you check that? So how does an officer do that? Usually it's a chalk mark. And I think you saw the chalk mark case that I put out recently, which was an amazing case, whether someone challenged whether officers can use the chalk mark, can use it. They challenged that in San Diego. And the answer is, yes, they can. So yes, that's how you do it. But if you just move, how far do you have to move to get out of that 48 hours now? 2 inches, 4 feet?
Do you have a set thing? I know where I work, it's 300 feet.
We don't have that in our code, our city code. And I don't know if that's constitutional, that may be arbitrary. But if they do move and the officer says, okay, they moved, the chalk mark's gone, now the vehicle can be towed. But that's a policy issue. Do you want to do that to people who have no place to go? And that's another policy issue. These cases, I think, are going to the Supreme Court. That takes a while. That could take years. Hopefully not too many years, but I think these 2 cases will go there relatively quickly, 2 years to 3 years.
So Joel, how do you handle an alleyway or the BLM right here? I mean, it's in our city limits. We are, required to enforce the laws within our city limits. I've been on
You're
some
going
of,
to anyway, even if I'm.
I've been on some of
Thank you.
those, I've been on some of those cleanups.
Yeah, correct.
And, there'd be a lot more sympathy for these individuals if they kept a clean camp.
Well, we shared many of the photos of some of the biggest problems. So before anybody goes away thinking we can't do anything, I think it's really important to understand what we can do. And, we have talked with Joel, and all of our group has talked a lot about what is our limit. So when that second case came out, the Grants Pass case, it made it so that our city ordinance for no camping, that's no longer enforceable. So we have to work through, we've sent all of our information of why that's a problem. But the no camping itself, the no sleeping, no rolling out all of that, I think at some point then we determine we can't enforce that. But there are a lot of things that's happening out there that we can. So spreading out garbage. Our park rangers, as well as the HOT team, they go out, they identify campsites. When they can make contact with that owner or that person that's living out there, then they give notice. They have a certain amount of time to clean up, and if they don't, their belongings will be moved. There will be a cleanup that's in process. And we've contracted with some agencies to come out and do some major cleanups out in the desert area. Unfortunately, just like with the parking issue, though, you clean up one campsite and tell people they have to move. We can't patrol the whole desert, so they'll just move to another area, and now there's a new location for us to address. But there are things, we have people that we are getting their campsites cleaned up, moving them on their way, and I think that it is important to be persistent. And we have tried to make it our priority that the areas that are near the library, near the school that's down this area, near our multi-use trail system, those are the areas that we have the most focus on. And then we do work with a lot of nonprofits for those cleanup projects. So we have been able to get people moving on their way. And so it might be garbage, it might be littering that is actually the offense that an officer or a ranger might cite in an area. In the parking spaces, it's correct. It is really difficult to move them out of their space, but once they start bringing on, so again, the structures is another thing. So it's not camping, but in erecting a structure on a public property without permission, that might be a way. And again, those are things that we would discuss with Joel, or we would discuss with our team before going and instituting that. Like Chief said, are they blocking the sidewalk? This last couple of weeks, individuals were spread out all over the sidewalk. Now nobody else can use it. That is something that we can enforce. The splash pad, going back to that example, no, we cannot prevent somebody from enjoying the splash pad, no matter their, whatever their age is, whether they appear homeless or don't, whether they're fully clothed or in a bathing suit. If they're naked, yes, if we can catch them in that act or we see it on a camera, we can do something about that. That is public indecency. There are things that we can address in that. If they are bathing with soap and water, shampoo, that is against our ordinance, and the reason is because that's going down into drain. It causes maintenance problems. In our bathrooms, if they are showering or using soap, those are things that we can address and that we can give somebody either a warning for their first time, or it could be cited if it's a major problem. So I don't want people to think that there isn't anything that we can do, but we are limited, and it is really tough determining with some of these new rules what can be done. So I just wanted to share that, and if there's other specific Parks and Rec ones, I'm happy to answer if you need me.
And one more.
And also on that, we've worked with a lot of the business owners. In fact, we have a business property manager here tonight, and I was just out with him and a couple of the owners. If it's on private property, and they call us, absolutely, we have every right to enforce trespassing.
Sure.
There's a lot of areas in the downtown area that we get those calls, and we have some very good partnerships with the business owners.
Chief, do you enforce panhandling and medians? Do you enforce when they step out into traffic to
We
collect money?
can, yes.
Yes, there's a lot of things we can do. I
Correct.
know, I'm just telling the public,
Yes,
there's a lot of things we can look for, but you do work with the courts, right?
we do.
To have the judge take a look at it and try to mandate stuff first, to try to get them help and get them into these
Correct.
things?
Yeah, that we have, when we do cite somebody for these types of behaviors and they're homeless or mentally ill, there's one court date a month for mental health homeless, and the judge will have them get resources or some type of health or treatment to dismiss those charges.
Right, that's a positive step, that's a
Correct.
good thing, because then we can try to mandate they get it, and I wanted the public to know that, because we're going through all this stuff, but we're doing a lot of things behind the scenes
We
that
are.
the public don't know.
So, this may sound horrible. I hope it doesn't come out that way. But has any community in the nation just stop feeding and close the doors and say, fend for yourself to these homeless and watch them disappear? Because if there's no services available, they'll find another place to go. Not saying that's what we need to do. But I'm also afraid that if we bring in all kinds of great new services, how many more will we attract from Phoenix, from the zone, that are getting displaced now? Those that are refusing service down there in the zone, they're going somewhere. And in a lot of instances, they're coming here. In a lot of instances, those other cities are handing them bus vouchers, obviously not bus vouchers to here, but Mr. Solar could definitely attest that, they get off at the at Gilbert and Apache Trail or Main Street, and they have all their belongings on their back and in their hands,
Yep.
and then they just dissipate into the community. Obviously, there's a humanity thing here going on. And to me, a lot of the priorities for us as a smaller community, we definitely want to focus on taking care of Apache Junction citizens that have been here for a long time and that have fallen onto hard times. And then these wanderers and squatters that are just in it for the drugs and whatever else and don't want any help. There needs to be a way we can move them along, send them to a city that does have the resources available to them. I don't know what the answer is. Give a drunk a drink, they're going to keep coming back for more. That's part of the problem with panhandling. You hand them $10, $20, and they're either going to use it for their next fix, or hopefully not. Hopefully they're using it for actual living reasons. But statistically shows that that's not what most of them do. Most of them are just using it for their next high. It sucks.
That's the one thing we need to get out to the public. Don't give them money. Do not give panhandlers money. If you really want to help these people, give to the organizations that help the homeless to get the homes, like Horizon.
Yeah.
Give the money to those organizations that go out and contact them and get them help.
Great
You giving them $10, $15, $20, all they do is go get blues. Blues are fentanyl. It is a crisis in this country, and they're getting it, and that's all they want. They know where to go get food. They don't mind sleeping in the desert. They're using the money to go get either the alcohol or drugs. A vast majority of them are drug and alcohol-related people. We do have a percentage that are mentally ill. Some are mentally ill and drug addicts and alcoholics. But yes, if you give them money, that's what they're going to use it on. Give money to the organizations that go out and try to help them and get them off the street and get them the resources. That's my recommendation to our residents.
Your Honor, Councilmember Heck had brought this item forward. Our goal tonight was to start the process of talking about this, what we're doing. I hope we've accomplished that. Well, this is not something that's going to be solved tonight. It's a work session. Talked a lot about items and issues and things that are on the back end of trying to deal with some of the symptoms of it. There are lots of things that we're going to continue to do as a city family that we need to try to work our best to help some of the root causes. And so we're going to continue this discussion. We won't, necessarily solve it. It's a work session. Wanted to make sure Liz and Chief had a chance. We talked about this during our retreat, and glad. Were there any other questions that? So what you wanted to?
No, thank you for saying that, Brian, and I was gonna make a comment. Obviously, as we've talked about, this is not an easily resolved issue. It's gonna be ongoing. I guess I wanted to make certain that our residents understand that there are a lot of things that go on. There are things that this city is doing, perhaps unnoticed, but they're doing so within compliance with the law. But we still have to address the humanity and the humane issues in terms of dealing with these folks. And I appreciate Maria being here this evening, and the chief, and Liz. And this may be something we could maybe, a few months down the road, just take another look at. Maybe some things have changed in the legal world that gives a little more strength behind what can be done. But I wanted everyone to know we care deeply, and we want our parks to be a place where families can go, where you feel that your children are safe, and we have to work toward that end. So, and I thank everyone. Thank you all for what you're doing.
And I'm going to make one comment on, because I've received a lot of emails as well in the aspect on it. The police, if I'm correct on this, and you can correct me if I'm not, but if the police get a telephone call from a citizen saying, on this address, there is homeless on this vacant lot, the police can't go in and enforce it because you're not the owner of the property. It has to be a complaint from the owner, not from the general public. That's one of the things that I've had to address many times. And then one of the other big things that I've repeatedly have had to address, City of Apache Junction, city limits is at Meridian. If you see something over on Ellsworth, that's not in the city limits of Apache Junction. Even though that area may have an Apache Junction address, it is not in the city. Any other comments?
Mayor?
Yes.
Just on the private property. Private property owners can get on a trespass enforcement with the city police department. That gives the city police department the right to first go over and warn, document that they've been there, then if they come back, now they can issue a citation for criminal trespass. So the owners of those properties can get a criminal trespass log with the police department and saying, I don't want anybody on my property. And then if people are there, the police warn them the first time, because that's what they have to do. Then if they do it again, they can issue them a citation. So you can do it, but a lot of owners don't do it. And I know, because I'm a police officer, you can't enforce it if the owners don't want you to do it. So that's just the way it is.
Okay. All right. I thank everyone, and I'll adjourn.